So is ignoring better, more recent studies, and they failed to even fully read, understand, and apply their own chosen study correctly, and they are ignoring once again that observational studies cannot yield reliable recommendations. But nonetheless, they're going to go right ahead and make recommendations. And what is their recommendation? Take our supplements, buy our program. We'll come up with any story we can just so you buy our bullshit, because if you buy this bullshit, you're more likely to buy more bullshit from us in the future. We've learned from homocysteine and bicarbonate to watch out for the biomarker bamboozle, remembering that improving a marker does not always improve the outcome. But this is the next level, because they don't even have a trial showing that their recommended supplement stack improves the marker, let alone the outcome. I have to admit, when I see this level of bullshit, I have one more concern that pops up. I mentioned before that there are several studies showing a risk from low normal potassium levels and several showing risk from high normal potassium levels. Is just showing one study to people with low normal levels and then showing people with high normal levels the other studies so they can show everyone a study to get them concerned and to convince them that their supplement protocol is needed? I have no way of knowing, but it's very odd to cite a single old study instead of more recent, more complete meta-analyses or the modern studies showing the U-shaped association. In today's day and age, anyone can just say, a study says, and then make any claim they want. If they actually bother to cite or show the study, that's considered above and beyond. But that isn't good enough, especially if you're going to make recommendations about someone's health. Reading and interpreting studies is a skill and requires careful attention. Studies don't exist in isolation. There's a corpus of scholarship on each topic, and not every study is as good as another. I call this the any study will do fallacy. Has his PhD, he should know better than this. Observational studies in fitness, just like in blood work, are never as good as controlled trials, and biochemical mechanisms often fail to translate into meaningful outcomes. And here's the thing, I've picked on these three examples, but this type of flawed reasoning and flawed understanding was rampant throughout the video. I could have picked on their comments about resting heart rate or stool analysis or cortisol, A1C, or literally anything except stress management, sleep, losing weight, VO2 max, and leg strength, all of which I've told my patient before. I could use any of those as examples because the fallacies are all the same, all building up the edifice of quantified quackery. The real problem with the wellness influencer set is that they are ignorant of their ignorance. They attempt to interpret these lab values in what they think is a more advanced fashion and end up, as a result of their own ignorance, falling prey to the Dunning-Kruger effect and massively misinterpreting the lab values due to a lack of context, a lack of awareness, and an inability to read beyond the abstract. And of course, he starts the video by saying, I'm not a medical professional, but then goes on to give basically medical advice and recommendations, and certainly recommends buying those supplements for which there is no evidence and no placebo-controlled randomized trial on outcomes. Certainly sounds like he's interpreting blood work and giving a prescription, doesn't it? Now, it's not a pharmaceutical prescription, it's an herbal prescription, but in my mind, if that's not practicing medicine without a license, I don't know what is. And hopefully I've made a case here for why that's not a terribly good idea. Now, do I think these supplements are harmful? I don't know. At best, they're just placebo, and as I mentioned before, the placebo effect can be powerful, especially if it's presented with confidence and has a high cost. Additionally, as I mentioned before, they also recommended that my patient improve his sleep and reduce his stress and improve his VO2 max and leg strength, and those things will benefit the patient. It's a lot like me saying, oh, you have pneumonia, take these antibiotics. Oh, and by the way, let me sell you several $100 worth of herbs for your immunity. Well, of course you'll feel better, but the antibiotics are the only active part of my recommendation. So the combination of a few truly effective but basic recommendations have been gussied up with a lot of bullshit and presented with slick graphics to make sure the razzle-dazzle fallacy has its full effect. And when the patient does feel better from the combination of the basic recommendations plus placebo effect, they'll keep taking those supplements and buy more programs, not realizing that the supplements had nothing to do with their improvement beyond their placebo effect. I call this using a pinch of truth to season a pot of bullshit. And you can see how all these fallacies play together in this video. You start with some razzle-dazzle fallacy, the patient brings their own placebo immunity illusion fallacy, you add in a scoop of biomarker bamboozle and plenty of TLDR fallacy and any study will do fallacy, and finally put in just a pinch of truth to season the pot of bullshit, and you've got a great recipe for a killer business model based on quantified quackery. Maybe it's not intentional and it's just due to a massive amount of ignorance, but even in that case, as Anna Sewell wrote in Black Beauty, how can you talk about only ignorance? Don't you know that it is the worst thing in the world next to wickedness, and which does the most mischief, heaven only knows. If people can say, oh, I did not know, I did not mean any harm, they think it is all right.